Well, howdy, and welcome to Questions for Coyotes. My name is Bravado, I am a coyote, and this is a throwback. We've arrived, folks. Here we are at the end of 2020, the year that somehow managed to span an entire decade, and there's no better way to kick it out the door than with yet another Q&A episode. But not just any Q&A episode. This is also the 50th-ish installment of this series, so let's take a moment to remind ourselves how it all started.
Starting off with a real easy one, I like that. My name is Bravado, and as you can see, I'm a coyote, the finest of the canines.
Well, whether we agree or not that the content of this series has improved, in that it's now actually written instead of me just going stream of consciousness for 5 minutes, it is at least better to both look at and listen to. I hope. I wonder what I did with that shirt. Anyway, let's get into it. Are you ever going to do any collab videos? This is actually a question from last time that I didn't get into for whatever reason, although I think it may have had a hand in inspiring the video I did shortly after about group projects. The short answer, though, is that I'm always open to collaborating, but for me to get engaged, there needs to be a clearer concept than we should make something together. The best collaborations are ones where everyone involved can contribute significantly in ways that showcase their specific strengths. So if you've got something like that in mind, let me know. Why are triangles the worst shape? With a name like that, I have to think that you definitely are a SNP. Nobody puts not in their name if they're actually not that thing that they're claiming not to be. Assuming that's the case here, it explains a lot, because SNPs tend to have a major inferiority complex when it comes to their own personal shapes, so it's only natural that they'd lash out at the superior polygon. But on the off chance you're telling the truth and you ain't a SNP, allow me to answer your question with a question. What's it like being wrong all the time? Out of all your shoe collection, what is your favorite pair and why? The answer is gonna surprise you, I guarantee. You might expect a pair of Jordan 1s or cool Nikes, but while I have a bunch of shoes that I like a lot, the ones that stood out to me as being my favorite, at least for now, are these. They're the New Balance Tokyo Design Studio RC2. They came out in early 2019 and were the second in a series of 4 different Tokyo Design RC releases last year, each of which were beautifully distinctive. At the time, New Balance wasn't really on my radar, but that's changed pretty dramatically here in 2020. I didn't get this pair until a couple months ago, as this particular colorway seems to be the most elusive of the RC2s. There are just so many great details. I love the way the logo is integrated into the plastic lace stays, and the Gore-Tex print on the toe box, and surprise pop of bright blue on the midsole. But most of all, they're really comfortable and really easy to wear with pretty much anything. They're not flashy, but they're absolutely special, and if you know, you know. Do you play VR? Have you thought about it, or are you planning to? My relationship with virtual reality is complicated. I really enjoyed the experiences that I've had with friends' VR setups back when that was allowed, but I've never been motivated enough to set up my own for a number of reasons. I'm fortunate that the space constraints wouldn't be a huge concern, but it's not an inexpensive hobby. That wouldn't necessarily be an issue if I was already into PC gaming, but I don't even own a PC. I don't really want to own a PC because building and maintaining PCs is not a pursuit I have the energy for, and that's why I've always stuck with consoles. So sadly, I have no immediate plans for VR, which has made 2020 particularly difficult. But there are a few scenarios that would make me reconsider. Maybe the upcoming ARM Macs will end up being a catalyst for native macOS support. Maybe we'll see a really great standalone unit that isn't made by Facebook, or maybe this is the generation where we get a more robust console-based solution. We'll see. Do you have more trouble starting or finishing an idea you've worked through in your head? I definitely have more trouble starting projects. When I finally put pen to paper after thinking about an idea, I never quite know whether what I'm trying to do is actually going to be anything close to what I envisioned. The first steps are always the shakiest, but once I find my stride, it's much easier to keep going. Even though I haven't arrived at a finished product yet, I feel as though I almost always have enough momentum to get me there. Now there is something to be said about knowing exactly when I've crossed the finish line in some cases, because it's easy to keep second guessing myself. But even through that process, I know that it will be done at some point, and so it doesn't really keep me from my goal. If a fursona can be the expression of one's personality and experiences, but is only ever explored or tested in a very narrow range of situations, is that person actually expressing a portion of themselves, or expressing the ideas of an unrelated new being that happens to have some similarities to its creator? Okay, so this is a bit of a mouthful, but I get where it's going. I think the core of the question is whether you can really consider your fursona a reflection of yourself if the situations they end up in and the ones you end up in don't really overlap. I can understand the logic there. It would be like if I made a character who was, say, a chicken, and he had entirely chicken-based experiences and didn't have anything in common with me as a coyote. Can I really consider him an extension of myself, or is he just a fun costume to wear? Metaphorically, I mean. But I don't know that I really agree, because fursonas don't just appear out of thin air. Even if you didn't design your own character, they're a reflection of your taste, and you project some portion of yourself into their presentation and performance, whether that's who you are now or who you wish you were. Putting on a costume may make you look like someone else, but it's still you underneath, and that's not as easy to obscure as this question might suggest. As an Anthro coyote, you can only wear one pair of cool shoes at a time. If you were a regular coyote, you could wear 2 pairs. Does that ever bother you? Have you seen my feet? I can't even wear 1 pair of cool shoes because they don't make them in a size 20 octuple E width, so I'm kinda stuck going au naturel. Maybe I could fit some on my hands, but I wouldn't say that's a particularly practical solution. This didn't ever bother me before, but now it will. In light of 2020 being such a rough year, what's one positive you can take away from it? I know I've gone on and on about how much of a disaster 2020 has been, and if I'm being honest, it's 100% true. At the macro level, this year has been an utter mess. As if dealing with an election and the accompanying news cycle wasn't hellish enough, we're facing the worst pandemic in generations and unable to really go anywhere or see anybody we care about. And we've been continuously reminded that the US is rooted in some pretty horrible things from which we haven't yet managed to extricate ourselves. But despite all this, I think I'm personally leaving 2020 in better shape than I started, mostly owing to some long overdue career advances. I haven't made a big deal about it here because it doesn't really translate into good content, but there's no question this was the single biggest positive of my year, and the fact that it was enough to outweigh all the other stresses and frustrations, of which there were many, is pretty remarkable. Also, having nowhere to go means my sneakers have all remained in really good shape, so there's that. What is your take on the SB Dunk hype? I have a lot of thoughts on dunks, but we don't have that kind of time left, so let's set the timer for 1 minute, and we'll see how far we get. Ready? Okay, so the Nike Dunk is a sneaker that came out in the mid-80s around the same time as the first Jordan. And like the Jordan, they were originally intended for basketball, but as technology progressed, both shoes found new lives as staples of streetwear and skateboarding. In the early 2000s, the Dunk was officially adapted into a skate shoe, and since then has gained even more notoriety thanks to countless collaborations with other brands and designers. We've been at a point for a while now where Dunks have stopped being a shoe that you can simply buy. Every drop is a raffle, and while some of them are super cool, even the undesirable colorways get snatched up in hopes of either being resold or simply because people are so desperate that they'll buy anything with Dunk in the name. And that's really weird and sad, and not helped by the fact that Dunks tend to retail for much lower than some other hype shoes, and so it's very easy to make money off them. I don't know how to fix it, but seeing the bubble burst on Dunk resale would probably give me enough schadenfreude to coast well into 2022. And it looks like time's up, but I've said what I need to say. Except that I'm gonna need those pink pig SBs that are coming out next year for reasons. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Most flavors are good with a generous helping of hot fudge on top, but if I had to pick one specifically, I'd say cheesecake. No, sorry, I misspoke. I meant cheese cat. That's like a combination of cream cheese and meerkat. Oh, I see what happened. This was my 50th straight episode where I somehow referenced eating meerkats. Huh. Well, nothing wrong with a little consistency. Hey, you know what else is little and has great consistency? Meerkats. Tender meerkats. What has been your favorite topic to talk about? You might be expecting me to say something like sneakers, and while they're fun to rattle on about, the topic that's more personal to me than probably any other is how important it is to be true to oneself and be supportive of others doing the same. It's not a terribly complex idea, but it's one that we all need to be reminded of, and it leads into a more general theme of acceptance and equality that has been a through line for a lot of the videos that I'm most proud of. What's next for Conversations with Coyotes? I gotta be honest with you guys, it's been a hard year for my creativity. I don't know what's going on or if it's just a fluke or what, but it seems like everything I've done has sort of plateaued in terms of reach and engagement and appeal. And I feel like those are dirty words in the sense that I'm pulling the curtain back more than I probably should, but to keep doing what I'm doing now doesn't seem right. Not for me and not for you. That doesn't mean I want to stop making videos, and I'd really like to continue with a series of some sort, but something about the current format isn't working and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if the solution is to cover specifically furry content, but this isn't a commentary or reaction channel, and a lot of the topics I'd be interested in delving into, I already did. There's potential to do longer videos in response to specific questions or suggestions, but I don't think it's fair to expect you to come up with viable ideas for me when I can barely muster any of my own, and simply coming up with topics isn't really the main problem. And it's not that I care about monetization or trying to make a living as some cool YouTuber, it's not about money at all, but I do want to feel like what I'm doing is impactful and interesting enough that people want to see more of it. I think that's all I've ever wanted. So in short, I don't know what's next. I guess we'll find out together. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll catch y'all later. Probably. Nice.